Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let's get started with this. I want to do a multi-part video to discuss the topics that I briefly touched on in our previous class. I covered the theoretical aspect of it, or just mentioned them really. It wasn't going in depth with that. So in this session, what I want to do is I want to talk about enums and interfaces again, but I want to give you some concrete examples where you'd see the applications of them. Excuse me. So in the first part, probably what I'm going to do is I'll just talk about enumerations, show you a couple of examples, the usefulness, and what exactly you can do with that. And in another video, hopefully I'll do that today. I'll see how much time I get. I will talk about interfaces there. Okay, so let's get started with this. I've created this empty project, sort of empty. It doesn't have anything. It's a plain and simple Maven project. What I did do though, I created a constructor and I called that constructor from public static void main. So if you run this now, you just see test. It does say some other stuff because I wrote a few lines of code which I deleted later on. But yeah, once it gets up and running, you should be able to see what's in there. So yeah, it just says test, okay? Because that's all there is to it. So let me walk you through what I want to do here. What I want to create is I want to create a person class. Oh, by the way, I don't think I need to do it in this way because you guys know a little bit of class diagrams already. So what I want to do is I want to create this person type, and each person have two things. To keep it simple, each person have a name. We can say that this is a string. And the other thing that I was talking about in the example in the previous class is that we can also have a gender. Now, based on what we know already, we could have created gender with string, but the problem it leads to is that this gender, the value it can receive, can be so many different things. So someone can write M to represent male, or they can type in MALE to say male, or some can write M in uppercase and ALE in lowercase. And maybe some may also type in male in all uppercase. So if you have some data written like this and they're getting saved into some database or even in a file, when you look at the data and you have so many variants of it, it just makes life so much difficult to process that. You need some pre-processing to even be able to work with the data. So rather than doing this, right, the proper way of handling this would be to use something called an enumeration. And you can create enumeration um, just like you'd create classes. So this one's a little bit slanted. Let me try this one out again. Not that it matters. All right, so we have the name of the class, and we have the attributes written down. And you'd know that for the down in here, we'd have all the methods, the constructor, and everything for the class. So this is a rough skeleton of a class diagram, because what I want to put in are the constructors, the getters, and a toString method. Okay, so I'm not writing them down here. I'll have the compiler, not the compiler, I'll have the IDE generate those for me. I should still write them down in the class diagram because it has nothing to do with the IDE. So I should be writing the entire design down. It's just that it would take some space and it would probably kill some time, which we don't really need right now. So for gender, We don't need attributes, but the genders, they can have two possible values. We can have males and we can have females. Right? These are the only two possible values for gender, and this is what's getting used in here. And this is what I want to create, but I want to create that in Java, and I want to write programs. So let me show you what we can do and how it makes things easier for us. I will be creating a person class. Yeah, that's what I said. So we'd have a private string name, private gender. So rather than creating a string here, we are doing something like this. And I hit Alt or Enter on my keyboard. So it gives me the option to create these things. Or I could do it manually. I could just go and create a new class within Java. But this option right here, create enumeration gender, we can do it right away. And we haven't created any package, so let me do that right there. If we had packages and we could arrange them in a nicer fashion, but I haven't done that because I was just lazy, right? So these are the two options, male and female. And once we have that in place, our person class is ready. Like, no, not ready. Well, we need to put in the constructor and other stuff, and that's really very easy. Hold down Alt or Insert, go for a constructor. Let's say we have a default constructor which really does nothing, and then we also have a constructor that takes in two parameters, name and gender, so that we can create a person like that. And then we may have the getters. For both these methods, we may bring in the toString. Okay, so that's that. And I could run this from main, right? We know how to do it, but the proper way to do it would be to write a test, okay? Like that. And we did a bit of that. So do we have one option here? No, no. Okay, let me try this out again, right from the scratch. So, oh yeah, we were doing that in NetBeans, I think, and it had separate support for JUnit tests right off the bat. We can do the same thing here as well, it's just that I won't get that support. But anyways, let me try. So I want to write a person test. And right within that method, I want to test how we can create a person. So public void test create person object. That's the name of the method. So I want to see if I am able to create person objects. That's the entire target of this. Okay. So something like this, person A equal to new person, say John Doe, and I want to say that this person is male. So this is the first example where I want to show you that with enumeration, this becomes so much easy. There is no way you can make mistakes. You're not going to type in general like this. What you'd be typing in is something that goes like this. So all these values, you can right away see the options are given. So we have a male, and let's say we have a person B, but this is a female. And you get some autocomplete or options. You see them right from the IDE. Okay, right? This is supposed to be a test. Oh, a test like this. And I will try to sort out the dependencies. Yeah. Let me go. Let me get the dependency for JUnit. I think that'll do. So it's a little silly thing that I'm doing right now on my laptop. Yeah, slow one and a slow internet connection. Should have had done that with my Wi-Fi connection, but did that anyways. So it's going to download stuff from the internet and may take a little bit of time. Maybe not so much. So yeah, this is going to be a test that we're going to run, and now things are ready. We see that we can run the test, but we need to do some assertions as well. So assert dot assert equals. I think it was called assertions, I guess. Yeah, right, not assert. So assertions dot assert equals. So I want to assert that the first person, person A, is a male. To test for equality, the expected thing is going to be gender dot male, and we want to see if we get the right thing. So for person A, if we get the gender, they should match. And for person B, this is supposed to be a female, whether we get a match for that. We can test this out. And we may have other methods in here. If I click on run person test, it's going to run all the test methods that we have written. So I did talk about unit testing before the lockdown, so we covered this. This is a pretty much fundamental thing you should do for all your Java project. And sometimes I'm quite lazy, I don't do that. But for any sort of Java project, this is a absolute must. If you're working for any software firm, this is an absolute must. Now what we see is that our test passes, right? We didn't put any output in here. We could, but so far as the test goes, no complaints. So for example, if you wanted to print out person A, we can do that. Now we have the two string methods. So this should work. Okay. So yeah, we have created this and we have tested this out. This checks out fine. What if I wanted to check the other class, the enumeration, another class? So let me create a gender test so that I can show you some of the advanced features of this enumeration. We're going to write a test again. And what I want to do is I want to show you a test method, public void test enumeration options. This may not be the right name for the method, but let me tell you what I want to do here. I want to show you the possible options that you get from the enumeration. So what you can do is you can say gender dot values, right? And that gives you all the possible values in an array. And what I want to say here is that as we know that there are two possible choices that we had for gender. We didn't include the common gender, but we got male and female. So if we want to do an assertion, assertions dot assert equals, we could say that the number of options here is 2. So this is easy to check. That's the expected value. And if you happen to test this out for the length, you can easily do so. So let me run this. So this test passes. However, in your case, like for example, if you wanted to include a common gender here or something that you don't even want to disclose, in that case, this test will fail because the number of choices that we have here is now 3. But what I'm expecting in my test is that there will be only 2 genders. So you see that the test fails, and this is one way we can know that the number of choices for that particular enumeration, it doesn't work. So this is something you could do. With enumeration, you got a control, or actually you got a facility that gives you all the options back. What it also allows you to do is to run through all the possible gender. So you can say something like gender G out of all the options that you get from gender dot values, right? You can do a printout of that, and now you'd see that all the possible choices that we have, however many we had, they will all get printed out. See, male and female. Another very convenient method you have with enumeration is you can say something like gender dot value of, and there you can pass the name that you have written with the enumeration. So let me test this out. Let me introduce a gender for female, and we can do an assertions. So we are expecting the gender that we are going to get is a female, and the object for the enumeration is this female. So this should pass, but if we do a mistake, like if we do something like this, then we're not going to get a female, right? So the test will fail from line number 12, actually from line number 13, and so it fails. Because we are expecting female, but we got male instead. What if I type in something that doesn't even exist, right? That should fail as well. See? Illegal argument exception, no enumeration constant defined for this. However, if you type in it correctly, then no problem, it should work, the test would pass. So what's the use case for this, you may ask? You know, when you're writing the data in a file or in a database, you're not going to write this as enumerations. You're going to write down the values. You're going to write in MALE or FEMALE, those words to say this, right? But if you look at this now, we got gender female, and this one checks out. So if you have a file where all these things are written, you can read the text, which is a string, and then you can pass that as gender.value of, and then you get this right off the bat. Okay, so this is a very convenient way to store data in a database or in a file. Excuse me, as strings. And if you write the values down properly, it's always very easy to bring the data out of the database or file and then convert that back to Java enumerations. And you can also have that check for free, because if there is some typing mistake or any other thing, then there will be an exception thrown, and you can see exactly where the exception is thrown. You can find out the error in the record very easily. So that's another really nice benefit of having enumerations. With enumerations, what you can also do, you can get access to two things. There is this ordinal and there is this name. The name would return you the string. So for female, it would return you FEMALE in uppercase. The ordinal thing is interesting. It's going to give you a number. So if you look at this thing, it's going to give you an array, right? We have male in index 0 and female in index 1. So if you look at the ordinal of female, we should get 1, because that's the index where this is at. Let me try this out. Yep. Had it been male, this would have been 0, because the way we have written this out, Male was in index 0 and female was in index 1. So let me complete this example. So we had two things, ordinal and name. You can access those things right from here. So you'd see we'll have a printout that says 1 because female is index 1 and the name that it prints is female. So this is what you can do with interfaces. No, not interfaces, for enumerations. So that's one of the examples that I wanted to show you. The other example is going to be a little bit more involved, but it's probably going to show you the true power of having enumerations. What I want to do here is I want to do this for students. Now, for students, we do a whole lot of things. We have a student ID, we have a student name, and for each student, we calculate Cgpa. So in our previous examples, I had that Cgpa thing written out uh, as a number, but here I don't want to do that. What I want to do instead is I want to have a list of grade entries. Okay. So just to give you an example, what do grade entries look like? For each student, grade entries would look like something like this, that we'd have a course and we'd have a grade. Okay, this is for any given student. So for example, let's say we have a student like this. I don't want to count zeros. Just imagine that we have a student whose ID was 20120, followed by however many zeros are required, and yeah, the last two digits is 10. And the name of this student is Iftikhar. Yeah. This, by the way, is correct. Is true. So the rest of the thing I don't remember. I don't remember his grades, but I do remember his ID and name. Anyways, so let's say that this student took this course, CSE2015, and got A plus. Right, so that's a grade. Perhaps the student took math 1024 and got B in there. And there can be other options in here. So we are recording all these things, course and grade, right? And the choices for each of these grades, they are going to be fixed. So what I want to do here is that I want to have a grade entries here. So something like this. I don't have this written out, but we'd have a list of grade entry for the student. The name is going to be obvious. It's going to be a string. The ID is going to be a long to allow 13-digit IDs. And for this student class, there will be the obvious choices, the getters and the constructors and other stuff. Okay, I'm not really bothered about that. But what I want to show you that there will be a method that says get Cgpa, which returns a double. And this calculation is based on all the grade entries, right? So if you think about the grade entries class, each of these grade entries, right? For each of these grade entries, we need a course code. For now, I'll keep it simple. This shouldn't be so simple, but let me just say that a course is written by a string, or represented by a string rather. And for each grade entry, we have a grade, which is of type grade. And this is something I will write in a bit. But we also need one more thing, which I skipped here. It's the credits. So CSE2015 is a 3-credit course, Math 1024, that's also a 3-credit course. But if you look at CSE2016, let's say the student got A in there, it's a 1-credit course. Excuse me. So the way this can work now is we have to write the credits in here, which is going to be W, right? And we will have the methods written down here. I just wrote down the attributes. So this grade thing I haven't written out yet. For grade, you see the possible options are limited. We have A plus, we have A minus, B plus, B, and so on, right? So these are the possible choices for grade. And these choices, they're fixed, okay? It's not just the name itself, A plus, A minus. We also need to know how much weight they carry. So if someone gets A plus in a course, that means that it's actually 4 out of 4. A is 3.75. A minus, that's 3.50. B plus is 3.25. And B is 3.00. And there are some other ones which probably doesn't need any mention because you guys are good. You're always going to get B or better, right? And hopefully A plus. Just wishful thinking. So this is the grade that's getting used here. The grade entry itself is getting used in the previous class in here, right? So this is how these classes and enumerations, I haven't talked about the enumerations, these are all related. Now, what I want you guys to understand is that somehow the grade system is already established, and we know exactly how much A plus is worth, we know exactly how much A is worth, and so on. So if we can somehow write code that takes into account of these grades that are already listed, we can use that to our advantage. So somewhere down the line, if we want to change the weight of these grades, we can do so easily. And yeah, if we want to introduce some new grades, some new letters, like let's say we have D plus, which doesn't exist right now, but we happen to be generous somehow and introduce that. So we should be able to, just because we have something like this. Let me get started, and I think we will soon be able to fill the rest in. So what I want to create here is a student class, and I will create the other ones as we go. So what I wrote in there in the class diagram, if I can recall, there will be a private long ID. There will be a private string name. There will be a private list of grade entry, which doesn't exist right now, and I'm calling this grade entries. Okay, so this right here is going to create problem for me. So let me do that. I'm going to create a class called grade entry, and it can be in the default package for now. So this is where I said that for each of these, we need to have a course, private double credits, private grade. And this, again, doesn't exist. So let us try this out. Hold on, Alt or hit Enter once you get there. I want to create an enumeration for grade entry. And the destination package is this one, and that can be fine. So I'm going to create all these grade entries here, all the possible grades here, but in a bit. Before we get there, I want to be ready with the constructor and other stuff. So what we can do is we can get the default constructor in. And this is not going to be blank this time because I want to do something. If I create a default student object, I want to make sure that the grade entries, it's not null. It has an empty list at least. So grade entry is equal to new array list. And the other thing that I wanted to create here is another constructor, but I don't want to supply the grade entries here. I want to create a constructor where I have the ID and name. But I also want to make sure that the grade entries, that list gets created properly. So what I can do then is I can call this like this. So this means this class, of course, and I'm not supplying any parameter here. So the student constructor gets called, and that's what ensures that the array list gets created. It's an empty array list to start with, but it is still there. Now, what are the things we can do here? We can have a we can have all the getters. We can have a toString, right? So where's that? Okay, so yeah, let's print everything. And what else is there? I wanted to write a method, public double get CGPA. For now, I'm not writing the method, not yet, but yeah, I want to calculate that, right? So grade entries, I can do this again. Let me see if this is possible, because that would be nice to have the CGP along with this. No, 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 no. It doesn't give me that option. No. But no big deal, really. After grade entries, I want to print the CGPA, right? So this will be a call to get CGPA, and that will get printed like that. To show you what we are going for, let us create this test already. It's not going to work, but it's a nice practice always. So we can say something like student test, public void test, create student. And this is going to be a test annotation right in here. Alter enter, import class, and off we go. So for a student, we can create a new student. We can pass the ID, say 124, John Doe. And without doing anything at all, I want to print the student out to see how it looks like. So yeah, it looks okay. So you got student ID 124, name is John Doe, and the grade entries is totally empty. There is no grades, and CGPA says 0.0. The real power of this would be to write a test where we are going to calculate CGPA, right? So we'll have that method which does some assertions or anything as such. So perhaps we can create a student. The same student will be sufficient, right? All right, so let us just calculate the CGPA of John Doe, get CGPA, and let us assign that to some CGPA variable. So when we create this default student who didn't do any course, didn't get any grade, the expected CGPA for this student is going to be 0.0. And we got to make sure that this actually holds, right? So we have this assertions dot assert equals. The expected value is 0.0, the actual value we got from CGPA, and we are okay with allowing an error up to 5 zeros after the dot. So 0.000001, that's our tolerance level for acceptance. Like for errors in calculation, we are okay to have that error after 5 digits, 5 digits after the dot rather. So test CGPA for empty grade list, right? So we wrote a test like that. Let us run this. So we're running 2 tests, and we're hoping that both of these tests, they will pass. Right? And it does so. So how are we going to write the other ones? And this is what extreme programming looks like. And this is a really nice practice. So test CGPA for single course or single grade entry rather. So for the same student, John Doe, what we're going to do differently this time around is that we will say that student dot get grade entries. We're getting all the grade entries, but we want to add a new grade entry here. Now the grade entry that we're going to add, and before we get there, we have to make sure that the support is there. And so far it's not there. What we want to ensure here is there is a constructor that allows us to pass the course code, the credit hours, and the grade itself. And down here, we can do something very similar. We can give access to all the getter methods. Let me do it again. I mistakenly hit enter. So we can have getter methods for all these things. And on top of that, I also want to have the toString because it helps with debugging. It's always a good practice to have that in place. Not for system.out.println, even for the debuggers, the toString help. So yeah, now that we have this for a student test, what we can do is we can insert a grade entry. And let's say this is for CSE2015, and it's a 3-credit course, so 3.00. The grade this person got is grade dot, I can't see for myself, yeah. Now you can. So grade dot, and I'll put a dot, but there are no enumerations defined. So that's a bit of a problem. Let's start this off. So we can create a grade like A. What about the best possible grade? A plus. That doesn't quite work because this symbol plus, it cannot be a part of any identifier. So what you can do then is you can type in A underscore plus, okay, as a word. Or we can have A minus like this, or we can have B plus, B, and so on. I'm not going to write all of them because it doesn't matter. If you're not getting A, B, or better, well, you should try. And that's why I'm not writing the other grades out. So let's say that this particular student got A. Right, so you see all these options are getting listed and they're getting also filtered out. So if I type in B, I get the options that start with B. If I just put a dot in here, I got to see all the options available. So it's a really nice thing. Having enumerations help out in so many different ways. Coding in itself, and that is a lifesaver in so many cases because it stops you from making mistakes. So let's imagine that if they got A here, and this is the only course that this person is taking. So calculating the CGPA is really so very easy. We know that for A, the value is 3.75. So we could type that in, and we can do this assertions. So when you write this out, does it work? No, it doesn't. So the assertion fails. It says that the expected value is 3.75, but the actual value that you're supplying is 0.0. And when you know that this is the problem, you know right off the bat that this is the place where the error is happening, and rightly so. We didn't write any code here. We just said that the CGPA will always return 0.0, which is okay when you don't have any grade entry, but as soon as you start getting the grade entries, this doesn't work anymore. So what do we do? Well, you have to go through all the grade entries to calculate the grade. Now, grades, I don't know if you guys know how to do this. Let me show you here. So let's say a person let me get some random entries. So let's say CSE2015 is a course, and it's a 3 credit course. Someone got A plus. Let's say we got CSE2016, which is a 1 credit course. Someone got A in here. There is a math 1024 course, and it's a 3 credit course. Someone got a B in here. Okay, so what's going to be the CGPA in such a case? So altogether, the total credits here, how much is that? It's 7. 3 plus 1 plus 3 is 7. But you cannot add A plus A and B like this, right? What you need instead is you need their numeric values. And I'm not going to get enough room in there, so let me bring this thing down somewhere over here. Okay. So for A plus, we know that the CGPA is 4.0. Not CGPA, the grade point is 4.0. For A, this is 3.75, and for B, this is going to be 3.00. So if we were to calculate the sum in here for all these 3 courses, let's see how much we get. And I could do it myself, but I'll need the calculator eventually. So let me get this. So we got 4, 3.75, and 3, right? So this is like 10.75 right there. And let me leave this always on top for now. So you got 10.75. And if you divide 10.75 by 7, it's not going to give you the CGPA. Because the lowest grade this person got is 3. And if you say that this person's CGPA is 1.535, makes no sense, right? So definitely something's wrong. Another thing you could possibly do is you could calculate the average. So we got 10.75, and there were 3 courses. So what's the average grade for each of these courses? And this is a better approximation. And you're going to say that the CGPA is 3.583. Okay, so that's one thing. However, I want you guys to notice is that getting A in a 1 credit course and getting B in a 3 credit course, they're not the same. This has much less weight compared to this one or this one, right? So that has to be taken into account. So the proper way of doing this is when you calculate the CGPA, it's actually the cumulative grade point average. So how do we do the cumulative thing? We multiply the credit hours with the grade point. So this right here is 12.0. This one contributes only 1, so this is going to be 3.75, and this is going to be 9.00. I mean, I actually didn't really need a calculator, or maybe I did for the final division. So this is going to be 12 and 12, so 24.75 right in there. And now you can divide this by 7. So 24.75 divided by 7. I could have done this without a calculator, yeah. Not going that far, but anyway. So 535, or actually 536. So the actual CGPA calculation is this one. This is correct. This one is wrong. Okay, so how do we calculate CGPA? Again, to summarize, you have to multiply the credit hours with the grade point. Okay, you multiply them. You do the multiplication for all these things. You add them up. You add up all the credit hours. You add up all the cumulative values, and then you do the division. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not really a big deal. So let us try this out. We'll try exactly this example in a bit, but let me put them in place. So we need a sum, because all these products, they need to be summed up. So we go through for grade entry out of all the grade entries. For each of them, we need to calculate the product. Product would be grade entry dot get credits. But we also need something else in here. We need to get the grade, and from the grade, we need to get the get grade point. We need to get the grade point so that we can do the multiplication. And this is where we are missing something. You see, someone says that A plus is 4. Someone says A is 3.75. Someone says B is 3. This is the get grade point method. And if we did have that, we don't have that yet. What we could do is we could say sum equal to sum plus product. That's that. And we also need the total credits, which we can start with 0.0. But then again, we need to add them up. So total credits equal to total credits, whatever it was, plus grade entry dot get credits. So once you have all these things, you can do your calculation, and eventually what you're going to do is calculate the CGPA. Double CGPA is equal to sum divided by total credits, and this is what you're going to return. All right. So this get grade point, it's coming from get grade, so it's going to be from the enumeration. So somehow, if we have a method that returns a grade point, then that would do. And this is where you need to finish this off with a semicolon, because this is a different method that's available from here. So now there is no complaint, and we can try this out. It probably wouldn't work. It definitely shouldn't work. But we are getting somewhere, right? We wrote a little bit of code. We wrote a little bit of get CGPA code. Maybe the get CGPA code is actually okay, but it still doesn't work because we haven't supplied the other stuff. So what you're seeing here is that the expected value is 3.75, but the actual value what we are getting is 3.0. Yeah, something's wrong, right? So somehow we are not getting the right value. Previously, we were getting something else. We were getting 0, I think, but now we're getting 3, which is also not correct. So the problem here is with the grade itself. The grade entries are different. For A plus, it's 4. For A, it's 3.75, and so on. And these are different. We are not doing this anywhere, right? So what we need to do is to add a member, double grade point. And we're going to return this grade point, okay? But this grade point is going to be assigned through the constructor call for each of these enumerations. So the way it goes is we can create a constructor based on grade point. And now you see that all these things are complaining because this is not taken care of. I don't know what's a grade point for A plus. So what we do is we supply that. For A, we know that this is going to be 3.75. For A minus, we know that this is going to be 3.50, suppose, yeah. For B plus, this is going to be 3.25. This is the grade point, by the way, and this is 3.00. Now, this is not a requirement, but I feel that it's easier for me to track is if I align them somehow. But this again is just a personal preference. You may or may not like this in this fashion. So all my enumerations are here. All my parameters are here. This is how the enumerations are created. So if we run this now, fingers crossed, I'm just hoping that this would work right now. It may or may not. No, it doesn't. And that makes me sad. So it still says 3.0. What have I done? Right. So the grade point, we got to test if this is coming out right. And we have the student test somewhere. So the get CGPA, maybe that method is not working properly, or maybe it's something else. But yeah, one way or another, we are not getting the right value, that's for sure. So the get CGPA method, we got to debug this some more. For all these grade entries, we are getting something out of it. If you look at the student test, yes, we did add a grade entry, and so going with that, if you look at each of these calculations, maybe this will give us a better insight of what's happening. I could just go and do some printout with system.out.println, but I don't want to do that. I want to debug this here. So with this breakpoint, it should stop when it reaches this point. Okay, so yeah, the course entry that you see here, it's for CSE2015, and the credit hours is 3, and the grade is A. So if you calculate the product here, where am I? So if you look at the grade entry, you can dig it down to see that we got the course code, we got the credit hours, which is 3, and that's fine. For grade point, we are getting 3.75. The name is A. The ordinal value is 1. So we get all of that. Are we calculating the sum properly? That's the question, right? So step over. Sum is 3 times 3.75, which is all right, I think. 3 into 3.75, 11.25. So that's what it is returning. Yeah, fine. And the total credits is whatever it was 0, followed by the credits. Credits should be 3. So let's try that out as well. It says total credits is 0. Well, yeah, initially it's 0, but then it should change. Some got updated, yeah. Yes, so total credits is 3. So coming out of this, you got 11.25, and I get total credits is equal to 3. And now I see. I didn't do this on purpose. Trust me, I didn't do this on purpose. That was totally stupid. We are calculating the CGPA, but you see what am I returning? Sometimes I just say it myself. So yeah. So I guess I can skip the debug and run this. So this should pass. And it passes. But something else doesn't pass. And this is the nice thing. If you have the unit tests ready, I knew this one would fail. If you look at this, test CGPA for empty grade list, this one fails, because what happens is that within the get CGPA method, what we are doing is we are dividing by total credits. Now, if you're dividing by total credits, and if there is no credits to divide with, what you get in the end is not a number. Anything divided by a 0 is undefined, and that's why it's called not a number. So what's the fix? This method is not 100% accurate yet. So if we see that the total credits, all right, is equal to 0, this is absolutely not the way to write it. What we should write is math.abs. The absolute value of total credits is very close to 0. This is what I want to say. Okay, so some threshold is there. If it is really close to 0, it's near about 0, then return 0.0 as CGPA. This is what it fixes. It's not going to return not a number, but it's going to return this. Or we could also check if the value that we calculated is not a number, then we could return 0. So we could fix it like that as well. But I think this is better because we have identified what causes not a number, and now we are writing based on that. So now if you run the student test, everything should be okay, and I should pass. Yes, all green, right? So this is what we want to see. This is an example of extreme programming. I walked you through the entire process that I wrote a bit of actual code. I wrote a bit of test code. And there were some errors, some intentional, some I didn't anticipate. Yeah. But eventually it did work out. The test is not complete yet. I tested for a single entry. Yeah, this one. I tested for an empty grade list, but I should also test for a number of entries. So what if a student has 4 or 5 courses? Are we calculating the CGPA properly? Okay. What if the student retakes a course? Are we calculating the CGPA properly? If you take all these things into account, you'd see that the code that we wrote may not work. The get CGPA method may still need some more work. Okay, so this is something I want you guys to explore a bit. The purpose of this entire session, it wasn't really showing how to do unit test, although we did cover that. Again, it was more to show you the power of enumeration. You see that it's not just limited to the names that you give. You can assign other extra values for each of these enumerations, and that really helps. The code that we wrote for get CGPA, it's really very simple. You don't even have to write if else's, that if my grade is A plus, then multiply by 4.0. If my grade is A, multiply by 3.75. That is something you'd probably write when you learn C, okay, for the same purpose. But here we are learning Java, which has a really nice feature for enumeration. So know the feature, know how to use it, and know where to use it. That's the point, okay? So this is what I expect you guys to understand. This is what I expect you guys to apply in the code that you write. So I want to wrap up this session with that note, that learn not just how to use it, but also understand where to use it. That's more important than knowing how to use it. So that's that. In the next session, if I can do it today, I'll do that. I'll do a little bit of stuff on interfaces, how you can create interfaces, where to use them, and how to use them. So that once we know how to use interfaces, we would be ready to learn the new stuff, the fancy stuff, and also very much useful stuff called lambdas that were introduced in Java in a few years back. It's a really powerful feature, and I use that a lot. So that's where we are headed. And in the meantime, please keep on working on the assignment that the project that I gave you. Right. For some of you, I did get back to you mentioning your IDs that you guys have to choose a different topic. And some of you did send me an email saying that you don't have computer or internet access. For those of you, I will write separate assignments, okay? I will assign them directly to you. Those will be individual separate assignments, and you'll have to write them on a piece of paper with pen, take photographs, and send them to me, okay? So that's all for this session. Thank you for watching and also trying it out. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, okay? So bye.